Hey everyone, welcome back to the POTA Performers YouTube channel. I'm Stuart, Victor Echo 9, Charlie Foxtrot, and I got something very special today. A little bit outside of my comfort zone, way outside my comfort zone, to be honest with you. I don't like going outside of my comfort zone too often, but today I'm willing to make a chance. Thanks to Chuck Lawrence for recommending Brian, Whiskey Quebec Zero Alpha, who's joining us from the center of the continent today. He's gonna enlighten us on parks on the air from the Morse code operator's perspective. Brian, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being on. And thanks to Chuck for giving you the clue to have me.
Tell us a bit about your ham radio journey, how you got involved with ham radio. A lot of guys, when I tell them that, ask this question, they all have a similar story. Hey, I was a shortwave listener. I was listening to AM stations. Some guys have told me, hey, came from the prepper community. I've seen that, but most of us have come from the shortwave side, the 11-meter side. But tell me your story. How did you get involved with ham radio?
Well, it is a cliche story. When I was in a sophomore in high school, my dad encouraged me to go to a radio club and get my technician plus. And he's a ham radio operator. He's an advanced. That's WD0COR. And he encouraged me to go as kind of a father-son bonding experience. I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. I went in and got my tech plus, and at the time you had to learn Morse code at 5 words per minute. And that was the very first introduction into the world of CW. Got my license, had some fun with 2 meters, with VHF, UHF, and then I went into the Air Force for 4 years as a firefighter in the Department of Defense. I was enlisted, did that for 4 years, and then I did a lateral career move over to a metropolitan fire department here in the Kansas City area. Then I did that for 25 years. So in that time, I did kind of the cliche thing. As a kid, I got my license, and then I put it all down. I put it all down for about, 30 something years. And one day I was dreaming about retirement, and I was watching these YouTube channels of these guys that were buying catamarans and circumnavigating the world and living off the hook. And I thought, man, that is exactly what I want to do. So I started thinking, what are some ways to have redundancy in communication if I'm not there in the ocean? You got your maritime radios and everything. And I thought, I got a ham radio license. I'm going to upgrade, and I'm going to help, I'm going to use that on my sailing vessel as an alternate, and also a way to keep in touch with friends and family on a boat if I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So I went out and I got my general license, and gosh, I did that about in 2022 or 21, and I thought it was cool. I got hooked again, hook and sinker. It pulled me in, and I thought, man, I just need to keep going and get my extra. So in March of 23, I took my test over here in Raytown amateur radio club and got my extra. Started playing around with doing HF stuff. I got my HF radio. I was all excited about it, and I noticed that there was this thing out there called Parks on the Air that people were doing. And I'm in an HOA neighborhood, so in the United States, it's frowned upon to have antennas showing in the backyard of your house in an HOA environment. So I had to sneak around it a little bit. I've got an infed half-wave sloper in my backyard, just a little wire antenna, but that helps me scratch the edge on the HF side. But I knew I wanted to do more, and the Parks on the Air program was very enticing. So I started gathering my stuff up, and I did my first activation. I think it was in June of 23, and I started on SSB, and I got a lot of contacts on SSB. Altogether, I've got about 40,000 QSOs with Parks on the Air, and I'd say most of those are SSB. I was enjoying it, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I also saw the Morse code aspect of things, and I had 5 words per minute back when I was a kid, and it was cool back then to me, and I thought, man, I need to try it out. I just need to see if I can do it. And so I went out and bought a key from Bamatech, and the TP2. It's a wonderful key, and the owner just passed away, which is sad. They're not going to be making them anymore unless somebody picks up the business. But I started practicing and started falling in love with it. And so the first CW QSO I did was in August of 24. So I was doing POTA March of 23, and a little over a year after that, I did my first CW QSO. Since then, I've got about 12,550 CW contacts with Parks on the Air. And that's kind of my story. Dad encouraged me, and then I promptly dropped the habit for the hobby for 30 plus years, and then got interested again. And thank goodness my dad gave me this hobby, because it really has blossomed into something pretty cool. I get a lot of satisfaction going out there and doing it. And since I've retired, it's really kind of opened up my my ability to get out there and be available for Parks on the Air. But yeah, that's kind of my story.
You know, that's a great story, especially you know, you and I have similar paths. I took 30 years off. You took 30 years off. Came back in around the same time. I probably a little bit behind you on going back onto the CW. I was telling you before we started recording that I bought my first paddle key last year, with grand aspirations to dust off the key this year, and then other things got in the way. Still good. I mean, I did pass my Morse code requirements back in Canada when I first got licensed. So just matter like you, just blowing off the blowing off the dust and getting back into it. And sounds like what you're telling me is that when you first started getting back into it and committed to doing it, it just started to come back naturally. Is that correct?
Yeah, the letters came back naturally. And there's kind of a stigma with learning Morse code at 5 words per minute, because you really learn to try to count the letter and listen to the dits and dahs of a letter that slow. And then you can easily write it down on a piece of paper. What that does, though, is it sets a mindset in your head that you need to count and listen to every letter. And as you grow in your CW journey, you want to go faster. And when you get up to around 20 words per minute, you can't write it anymore. It just gets too fast. So, you know, what do you do if you're trying to sit there and pick apart a word letter by letter? It can be a real hindrance. So you have to get past that bad habit that you formed and try to start to learn the whole word. And that's been kind of my challenge when I first started, was going from just listening to each letter, for going to individual letters, to trying to understand the whole word as it comes. Now, when you go with words that are 12, 15 words per minute, write them down, because in my head, it's so slow. I have a hard time just processing spelling words in my head that slow. I just go ahead and write down what people are saying at 12 or 15, even 18 words per minute. But you get past 20 and you don't have much of a choice. You got to step up and understand what they're saying, or else you got to get back down to where you're comfortable sending. And that is the key in the CW world. You do not send faster than you can receive. So yeah, that's been the challenge, but I think it's just like learning an instrument. You know, I'm a musician. I play drums and I play guitar, and nothing gets done without just good fashion practice and dedication. You just got to stay with it. Anybody can learn CW. You just got to stay with it. It's a program that you have to stick with. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at.
I was going to say, you know, I won't say I'm a musician, far from it, but I do like to dabble. I played guitar when I was young, and I would, you know, when I was in the military learning Morse code, the instructors always said, don't worry about counting the dits and dahs. You know, start recognizing the sounds. And for you guys that have a musical background, you'll pick it up faster because you'll start recognizing it as notes instead of, you know, the sounds equal notes. And once you hear the note, you can pick it up. And that worked. I'm not going to say I'm a good guitar player. I'm actually pretty terrible. You know, I rely on you know, a lot of distortion to make it sound good. You know, I'm one of those type of guitar players. You know, fast and distorted, right? But you know, I was a master of 3-chord songs back in my day. But you know, that's too cool. That's the reality of it. Is you got to stop listening to the dits and dahs and start understanding the sounds. And then, as you say, you know, then understanding what words sound like. And I have a lot of friends from my contest days that always say, "Hey, Stuart, you got to get on the CW contest. You'll really like it." And I say, I can't work that. Those guys I listen to them, and it's just like one continuous tone for me because they're moving so fast.
Yeah, they're gifted. I dabble in contesting. I just did it yesterday with the what was it? They called it the MST. It's like a mid-range 20 to 25 words per minute contest, and I was sitting there trying to keep up with them. It is a gift what they do. I find myself pretty talented with being able to pick out people's call signs and POTA, but those guys do it on a whole nother level, and they're fast, and you know, a lot of them are running keyboards with their CW, and it's like a a next level goal, if you say, for CW operators. So yeah, all my respect goes to those guys.
And if you watch any DXpeditions and things like that, you'll see them with their flex radios, with their keyboards. It's really sharp. And I know my FTDX10 will actually do CW decoding. I don't know how well it does it. I'm just waiting forward to the day that the AI gets intuitive enough that all I got to do is plug in the cat control cable from the radio into my computer, and it just reads it all out, and I can type it all in, and there's my CW. I don't know, maybe one day the AI will get smart enough. But back to POTA, because watching some of your videos and understanding how Parks on the Air works on the CW, it is definitely a different thing than what the sideband experience is like. Because I often hear, when the sideband guys are complaining about QRM and all the anti-POTA people on sideband, they always say, "Come to CW, we don't have that problem here." So it is definitely a different experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the selling points to learning CW. It can get frustrating being on an SSB and having all the QRM, and we're butting into bandwidth that's been net operators and regular SSB guys for years and years and years, and it's causing some rifts, between people. And we just have to share and know that we don't own the bands. POTA doesn't, net control doesn't, for whatever net's going on. And we all have to share it. But when you get to CW world, all that quiets down. All that matters is you and the guy trying to make the contact with you, and everything else is silent. So that's a selling point. Another selling point is it's weak signal propagation. So on a day that the sun's not agreeing with us and there's CME or a flare, or we're in between, and it's just propagation's crap for that, for that particular day, most of the time you can still get in and work CW and manage to activate parks. I've not yet had a failure on CW with activating parks, and that's kind of an advantage too. So it's much more quiet and it's more one-on-one. One of the negative things, though, is that you kind of lose that personal connection with people like you and I are doing right here. I like to have a little conversation with people on SSB. If I'm not getting piled up on, we talk a little bit, we have a little fun, and then I'll move on to the next contact. I've got a lot of SSB guys that I've had contacts with in the past, and I have this thing. It's a token of appreciation I give to milestone QSO counts. So 50 QSOs, if I make 50 with another operator, I 3D print, actually I've got it right here, I 3D print a little token of appreciation, and I send it to them in the mail with a QSL card. And when we make 100 QSOs, they get a much bigger 3D print, and it's more personalized. And to me, it's just a way of saying thank you. And those guys, man, they appreciate it so much. And when you're out there, I don't know how it is, but they're finding you. I don't know if they got you in their ham alert, that app that can pop you up on their phone when you're on the air. They'll find you, and I get these guys coming back every time because they appreciate that, and I love that connection with people. So I'll never stop doing CW. SSB. I'll keep doing SSB, but right now I'm just kind of steering on the CW side just to get the most experience and to get better at it. It's just great practice, and we're in a low solar propagation, a low solar cycle, heavy solar cycle where there's just a lot of stuff going on with propagation, and it's just easier to get out in the park and activate with CW now than it is at this particular time with the solar cycle the way it is. So yeah, disadvantages, advantages, but I still have contacts through CW that I do the same thing, and they always come back and say hi to me and give me a contact. And if you watch my videos enough, every once in a while you'll see me do a little dit 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 dit, dit, and then they go dit dit on the end. That's how they know that I noticed them, that they're repeat contacts, and I appreciate them, and I give them a little something extra at the end, and people appreciate that. And also saying their names, giving them their names on a exchange, letting them know that there's personalization into CW. It's just not dits and dahs and moving on to the next contact. You could do the same thing with CW. It's just not as extensive.
Yeah, I do that on the sideband side of things. I always try to Although I'm a very fast operator, kind of almost like contest like when I do my parks on the air. If it's somebody I know that I have regular contact with, I'll always spend a couple. I won't say a couple minutes, but a few seconds just having a personal dialogue. Now that you and I have had a face to face for the first time, if I hear you calling me, I'll say, "Hey, Brian, hey, how are you doing, my friend? Good to hear from you. Thanks for the contact. Hey, stay well." That kind of stuff. 30 seconds max, and we're off to the next one. So again, I've never done a parks on the air from the CW perspective. I think you're starting to inspire me that I really should start looking at that a bit more. Now that summer's here, it might be a next winter project. Winter next year is as bad as winter was this year. I'll have lots of time to do that other than going out to plow my driveway, which I did numerous times this year. So what's different now that you've done sideband in Morse code? Is there any differences in the operating styles? Like how do you do parks on the air differently in CW than you would say sideband? I know I hear things like there's always little I don't know how you call it. You call it dit-dots and dit-dit and all that. Is there anything you do in parks on the air that would be different than say what we do on sideband?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences is we don't share park numbers. It's too much in an exchange. So, and that I think is actually kind of nice. I wish the SSB world would adopt that a little more, because unless you're a collector and you got to have it right then and there and put it on your map that you've activated that park, I totally get that. But if you're just banging out contacts and you don't need to know what parks, as long as the parks on the air the database is gonna figure all that stuff out. That'd be cool in SSB world. But yeah, in the CW world, we don't share park numbers unless you want to. And if it's a slow day and you're not getting piled up on, feel free to share your park number. It's cool. Let's see, what else do we do differently? That's the main thing. And the other thing is bandwidth. You have to give yourself kind of a wide spectrum to operate SSB. Was it 3 hertz difference for operator to operator when you're talking about different levels of bandwidth? We operate if I operate on 14.026, there's a guy that can operate at 14.0265 right next to me, and I'd never know it. So it's a very thin signal, very low bandwidth, a narrow bandwidth signal. So you can find that there's plenty of space in the CW band. There's not, you can get crowded, but you can also like split the difference and go into the 0.5 mode, to in your frequency to be able to activate. So that's one of the biggest differences is the availability of frequencies. And other than that, the exchange itself is just different. We give our call sign, we give our radio report for signal strength and all that, and then we give our state, and that's about it. And some do a little more, some do a little less. Some operate in contest, kind of like contest mode, like you operate in SSB, and that's cool too. It's kind of, you operate the way you want to operate, just like on the SSB side. But you'll find that guys have different styles they go with. Those are the two main differences. It's pretty simple. When you look at it and you start operating on it, you realize, man, it's different altogether, and it's a little bit more simple, a little bit shorter of a contact. If you're getting piled up on, man, you can stack them up.
And I do like the idea of not exchanging park numbers, because that's my biggest beef, especially when you get all these guys that go out and do, 3 FIRs and 4 FIRs, and I say cajillioners, and they're at cajillion parks. I don't know how that's possible, but they sit there and multiple operators too. Now I don't want to turn this into a beach session, but you got 5 operators and they're all giving their parks out every single. Those QSOs get very, very, very long. I'm not a fan of the especially giving out multiple parks. So yeah, if somebody asks me, I'll go out and I'll do 500 QSOs in an activation, and I'll get 2, maybe 3 people asking me for a park reference when I'm out there. And when I'm out, my style is a little different. I just put in Ham 2K Polo, I just put 1 park. So when I hit the spotting information, it just puts out the 1 park. Because I know the other ones aren't going to get shown anyway, unless it goes into the comments, so also add whatever the terminology they use that is. But I'll go and add the multiple parks later because again, for me, I have two goals with parks on the air. One, as a hunter, I hunt new parks, and really exclusively new parks. I watch for parks that I don't have because the list gets too long for me to work everybody I can hear, unless it's somebody I know and it's a regular contact. And I also hunt new DXCC entities. I'm sitting at 115 right now, so I'm always hunting new DXCC entities, and that's why I'm intrigued about CW because I think I can expand that a bit more going into the CW space. And when I'm activating, I'm really just, for me, it's how many DX QSOs I can get. Not even North America. Like I go out with one intention to work DX. I want to work Igor in Moscow and Mohammed in Kuwait and all over Europe. And I'll pick up all the North American stations I can in the course of doing that. But I intentionally, when I go out, and now this is a difference of me being on the east coast of Canada versus being in the center of the continent. You're close to nothing. You don't even got Japan like the guys on the west coast get. So working DX is a little bit of a push for you guys. But Mike, I'm like Salty Walt. I'll go put the antenna on the beat and sit there and work as many DX stations as I can. So that's one thing I like about Parks on the Air, Brian, is that you can customize it for whatever you want to do. You don't have to, there's best practices, but there's really no this is how you do it set of instructions. That's what I like about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm completely jealous of you coast guys that get to play with DX a lot more than we do and take advantage of that salt water and the skip and everything. So yeah, I wish I could do that more. And whenever I get to go to the coast, I always bring my gear and I do that stuff. So just to get to enjoy that some. But yeah, in Kansas, it's a little tougher to get DX entities. When the solar cycle was booming and you could get on 10 meters, man, it was gangbusters. I loved it. I'm sure you did too, being a DX guy. But now it's a little bit tougher. And the CW portion will allow you to reach out and touch people a lot farther than a SSB. And most of the time when you're out there operating in the field, these guys are doing QRP. A lot of CW is QRP, and the opportunities for DX calls are they dwindle a little bit lower, just because you're running 5 watts or whatever. But doesn't mean they don't come in. They'll surprise you. I'll be sitting here in Kansas and Australia will come in and just surprise the heck out of me, so you just never know. But if the conditions are bad and you're still trying to get that DX, CW is really a good path to take. But I'm not limited to QRP stuff. I'll take my 100 watt barefoot radio out there and let her rip, and man, it just opens it up. So but yeah, it's a little bit more of a challenge, but it can still be done.
I was at a QSO this morning with Keith, Alpha Charlie 1, Romeo Hotel. Keith runs 700 watts when he's out doing POTA. He booms in here from New Hampshire. And I run a RM Italy amplifier, which is, I think, 250 watts. But I have an Ameritron ALS 500 coming. I ordered it from a guy in Edmonton, and it's on its way here. So I can't wait to try that out. I think it's a 12.8 volt DC but it's got a huge current draw. I think 80 amps. So I got to figure out how I'm going to power this baby for several hours. But here's some advice. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this program, since you're primarily a CW guy leaning that way. I don't know if you've experimented with worldwide flora and fauna. So it's the program that Parks on the Air came out of back in 2016ish, I think. But that worldwide flora and fauna is primarily a CW operator program. There is some sideband, some digital, but most of the operators there come from the CW space. And I know a lot of guys in Belgium and Holland and all over Europe and Australia who are looking for US contacts on CW. So, and since you're already at a park, most POTA parks are on both. I'll be also on worldwide flora and fauna. The only difference is, of course, flora and fauna being a little more archaic in its technology. You have to mail your logs in to some guy, right? And then wait for them to get uploaded. One of these days they may fix that. Who knows? I always dual activate because I like to double dip. And I know flora and fauna for a program is more DX oriented. So it really fits into my wants and needs from radio. But I do both. And also playing with lakes and lagoons and bunkers on the air, all these programs. And that's one thing I like about Ham 2K Polo from a logging perspective. It does all of them. So What, back to parks on the air though. What are some best practices that you could share with, maybe somebody who's been doing CW for a while, or a guy like me who say, one of these days I'm going to do it. What are some best practices you can share?
I think one of the big ones is don't try to shotgun broadcast your call sign to an activator, and that's giving out your call sign 2-3 times to try to get that activator to recognize you. Because in the CW world, you're writing down a call sign, it may be a partial. And once I get a partial, even if you're loud and proud coming at me strong 2 or 3 times in a row, I'm not going to reach out to you. I'm going to reach out to that guy that I just wrote down partial call sign to. So that's one of the big things is when we're trying to type a call sign, we're not going to back up and try to type a call sign all over again. So, if we're operating and we have a weaker station that we're committed to, we're going to stick with that committed call typically. So it doesn't really benefit people putting out their call 2 or 3 times to a CW operator, an activator, because we're really just trying to nail down one call sign. It's hard enough to pick out that 1 or 2 letters in a pileup and then decide you're going to change your mind and go with another call sign. It just typically doesn't happen that way. So yeah, don't give out your call sign more than once. Let's see other things, other nuances. We're not conversational. It's just your mindset is it's getting that call sign, making that contact, and moving on to the next thing. So I don't have a pen and paper, or I don't have notes to take. If you want to talk to me for a while, I can get on the Ham2K app and I'll hit the notes section field and I'll just start typing if a guy is contacting me and trying to make conversation. So I'll start writing out our conversation. If it's a slow operator, do it that way. But typically our exchange is short, and although if you want to have a conversation, that's cool. But if you weren't a pileup, it's best just to keep it moving. So let's see what else. If you're new and you're given park numbers, don't need to do that. We kind of discussed that already. Kind of the benefit of being a CW activator. There's some other things. I think that's about it. There's those nuances that if people just kind of get a grip of, it makes the CW activation go smoother for them and for us. Just know that when you're hunting the CW operator and you're giving your call sign out, we're trying to get to you. Nobody's getting ignored. And if it's a pileup, it gets real hectic, and you just stick with it. Come and keep coming and keep giving us your call sign. We'll make it happen. And if it doesn't, turn the dial and come back in about 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe the pile has slowed down. So I think that's kind of good advice to give people is don't sweat it if you don't get us the first time. Most of these guys are out here not for 10 contacts, but they're out here for 50 contacts. And they're going to accommodate unless they're doing a park rove and you get your 10 or 11 contacts and you go QRT and you move to the next park. But everybody wants to work everybody, and the CW community is so good about operating about newcomers with their skills, trying to match their speeds. Some advice I can give to the newcomer CW hunter is that don't freak out about your CW speed. If you're doing 10 words per minute, 12, 15 words per minute, it doesn't matter. If your signal's coming in strong and I have put your first 2 letters in my app, you're in, and I will slow down for you. So don't worry about that. And a lot of the CW operators in the POTA world are the exact same way. They're very accommodating to newcomers. And I was a newcomer. I had to do the same struggle to make contacts, and it's all part of the game. It's all part of growing the POTA community and making everybody better. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, those are the main things about a CW exchange that I can give for advice.
When you're calling CQ on the CW side, a lot of guys will say CQ POTA, CQ POTA, CQ POTA on the SSB side. I just call CQ whatever CQ band I'm on. Is there any difference in it? Are you guys still calling CQ POTA, or are you just breaking down the CQ to something very, very short?
Most of us do the exchange as CQ parks on the air, CQ parks on the air, WQ0A. And mine's very set. I keep things very regimental for everybody, because it also helps with the newcomers that come in and they're trying to copy call signs. they know exactly what I'm going to do. If you listen to me for a while, you know exactly what my pattern is going to be. And so you can kind of cater to that and make the exchange similar in respect. But yeah, it's CQ, POTA, DE, which is from, call sign, and that's it. And it's a pretty short, sweet, to the point, and then you start having them trickle in.
Brevity is the key. That's what I figured out with CW from even dating back to my professional side of CW. Keep it short and keep it brief, and again, don't go. Our rule on the CW nets in the military, where you can't, the speed of the net is the speed of the slowest operator. So if that was 10 words a minute or 12 or 15, that's what we all set the standard as. So imagine parks on the air would work in the same capacity. So this is great. I mean, I learned a lot about CW and POTA, and it is from everything I hear, a very different world than I say on the SSB, but there's a lot of similarities too. So I think it's you get the best of both worlds, Brian, and I think that's important. So I always ask this question at the end, and this is an interesting question to ask you, because I find Morse code, CW. Actually, yesterday was Samuel Morse Day. I don't know if you knew that. There's a lot of stations on celebrating Samuel Morse Day. I find Morse code or CW as a technology and ham radio operators being so what's the word I'm looking for? They like to retain a lot of the older technology. We still have SSTV and RTTY and all that stuff. And Morse code, I think in the ham radio world, is really the only place I see it being used now, unless there's some clandestine military thing going on that I'm not aware of. But that's one of the things about ham radio is we hold on to these legacy technology. I always joke. I really upset a guy one time. He was going on about CW and said 1812 called. They want their technology back. I kind of rubbed them the wrong way, but I meant it in a fun way, because I have a lot of respect for what the CW operators do, having done it myself. But we like to hold on to these legacy applications, these legacy technologies, but we can still experiment with how new technology play with the legacy one. So the question is this: where do you see amateur radio going in the next 5 to 10 years, giving your perspective on the CW and your experiences?
So yeah, CW has been going around since 1800s, and that kind of tells you that it has withstood the test of time. I don't think CW is going anywhere. I think it's an art form, an extension of ham radio. I don't think that's ever going to be lost on our hobby. So what I do think, as far as technology goes, I think software-defined radios are just going to get better and better, and we're going to see, we'll see built-in hotspots where ham radio or transceivers are more Wi-Fi capable and more adapt to plug into the IP world, and how our mobile radios have gotten, and just even our 990, like the Yaesu 991, it's the fusion technology on it. I think they're going to be their own hotspot someday, where you're just going to be able to link into the Wi-Fi, and if you want to do digital mode, SSB, your phone digital mode, you can do it. I think our ability to do more digital modes, like the new stuff like FT8. I say that's new. For me, it's new. Like you, it was new. But all these are going to be more, I think, geared into the transceiver and less into the computer. I think that transceiver is going to become more of a computer, probably. And that's where I see it. The software-defined radio is just going to get better and better. And I don't know that we'll be able to see radios get good enough to transcribe voice into CW. That'd be quite the thing. But you never know. It could get better with decoding CW. I think I've got an FTDX10 sitting here, and the decoding's great. I think it could be a lot better, but it also depends on how well we send. So, but I think that maybe that IA or AI technology may play into that, to where it starts to understand that somebody's doing a pattern on CW that is not traditional. Maybe they're straight keying it and they're putting their own little twang into it, because that's what people do with straight keys. You got personalization to the max with the straight key, so they do their thing. And versus an iambic key, where you're just sounding robotic, when you do CW. Maybe the radio is going to be able to use AI to transcribe people's patterns better. So it's just me just spitballing ideas. But yeah, it's exciting to see how ham radio is going to be. I feel like I came out of the dark ages when I did my 30-year plus siesta from ham radio, and I got into it again, and I was just blown away by, like you, I was just blown away by all the possibilities. I mean, think what it's going to be like in another 20 years. You know, what are the next possibilities going to be? So yeah, it's not going anywhere. I think ham radio, there is a place for amateur radio, absolutely, especially in disasters. We've had that proven time and time again with hurricanes and earthquakes. I can't remember the name of the earthquake that happened down in the French Polynesians, but there wasn't a ham operator in the area, and they were just their main line of communication was broke, and they were in the dark for a long time. And it's just going to be crucial for us to maintain that ability to get out and set up emergency communication stations. And that's where Parks on the Air kind of shines, is we're all getting better at that. So everybody's going to be more and more capable of being able to maintain communication if something bad happens. So, and it's not if, it's when. You know, natural disasters just they come around, and it's the ham radio operators that are really the clutch communications bridge that happens. And that technology with the antenna technology, I think it's all still going to improve. And yeah, we'll probably see smaller radios. It'll just be like our phones, you know. This is a computer. It's a radio computer, basically. It's going to be the same with ham radio technology. But yeah, I'm excited for it, and you know, I hope we get to see some great things in the next 10 years.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I'm constantly amazed as well how many young, I'll say young because I'm an old man. You know, younger amateurs, new amateur radio enthusiasts, people entering the hobby, if they're 20 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old, it doesn't matter the age. You know, after they play around with digital and SSB, they always say, I got to learn CW. You know, so it's nice to see the new hams embracing our, I'll call it our legacy applications like CW. And I was talking with Dave Goodwin and a bunch of the RAC, the Radio Amateurs Canada guys who go to ITU and IRU every year and participate in that conference that, you know, leads basically every 3 or 4 years. I think there's a big conference where they set the whole telecommunications world standard for the next 4 years. Did you know, Brian, that the amateur radio frequency allocation is 9% of the entire spectrum? We have access to 9%, either exclusively or shared, in the case of like 60 meters where we share the spectrum. But that's a lot of frequency spectrum, and we have lots of room to play ham radio with. I'm really getting excited on what, you know, some of these gigahertz or gigahertz applications like satellite and things like that I haven't even dipped my toe into yet. Like I said, there's endless opportunities in ham radio, and you know, for all of us or all the people that talk negatively about different technologies, or you know, nets are ruining ham radio, or POTA is ruining ham radio. You know, this whole hobby was built on guys like you and me and the whole entire community 100 years ago experimenting and trying new things, and you know, it just gets better from there. Hey, Brian, thanks for coming on and doing this. I really, really appreciate you taking some time out and come and talk to us. And I'll put a link to your YouTube channel in the pinned comment below. I encourage you to go and check out. But before you, just give us a little plug about your channel. What do you cover on your channel, and give us the, you know, where can we find? I know it's on YouTube, but do you have a short URL that you can share?
Yeah, well, real quick, just thank you for letting me be on your show. I think it was very, very cool for you to reach me from Canada and give me this interview. It was a cool opportunity. I appreciate it, and it's always good to be able to promote ham radio to the community. And yeah, the CW operators are going to keep coming. You know, these new guys, I think these new Parks on the Air people that are doing CW, I see more and more guys on social media and gals that are trying to steer towards getting their CW, because it's kind of the big goal that Parks on the Air guys can reach, to open up their spectrum of possibilities with being able to reach people. So yeah, it's growing. I love that. So yeah, my YouTube channel. So it's basically I try to make a storyline with it. It's evolving, because I'm new at YouTube, and I'm trying to find where my place is, and where my passion lies. I am not really bringing up products too much unless I'm using them. I'm kind of a creature of habit, and if I find the next great antenna, I want to take it home and use it, and then I'll put it on YouTube and all that. But right now, I'm just going to parks. I'm showing people what the area is like. If it's like a museum, I'll go inside. If I can shoot, I'll take video. Like I went to one place where I had a full guided tour, and he let me film it, and so I took little snippets of that and put it in the video. I try to make it an adventure and a storyline. It's just not me popping up on the park and doing my activation and calling it good. I've tried to provide a little bit more entertainment value for photography and videography for it. I've got a background in photography, and so I'm trying to translate those photography skills onto videography skills, just to provide a better product and try to provide that entertainment for people, because not everybody who watches, I have found out, are not operators. They're not ham radio operators. Some people just want to know what you're doing. Some people just are fascinated by the fact that we're using a little clicky machine and talking to people 900 miles away or 2,000 miles away. So, I'm trying to cater the channel to be user-friendly for operators and non-operators, and try to grow the hobby, but try to make it a content that people can just be entertained with, other than the activation itself. So, and it's evolving, and who knows what it's going to be like. I'm still pretty new to the game, and it's exciting to see myself evolve. So the way you can reach me is you go on YouTube, and have a real short link. It's at the symbol @ WQ0A -amateur radio, and that's it. You can just type in my call sign on the search box on YouTube, and you will find me. I'll be that guy that has the overlanding vehicle that goes on different adventures and shares them with you. And I hope everybody comes and checks it out, and hopefully I can snag some subscribers and some people that want to stick with me.
Absolutely. And, I found too is my activation videos are always my worst performing videos, where I'm just sitting there showing QSOs. I'm like you. When I first started this, I wanted to go places, show, okay, here's the road to come in. Here's a good place to park and set up. Here's another better place to park and set up. Or here, I hiked in, half a mile or a mile into the woods for this one. And, I envy you overlander guys, because I had a good conversation. I actually recorded a conversation with Max N4 TRD. I'm not sure if you know Max, but he's an overlander guy as well. And I always say, you overlander guys, when are you guys going to get better trucks? Because all you guys have Tacoma. My POTA, I call it, my POTA is a Tundra. Come on, guys, step it up and get into the real world of trucks here.
Well, I have a Toyota, so I am in your club. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I do know Mac, and hopefully, I don't know if he's going to Hamvention or if you're going to Hamvention, but I am, and I hope to see folks there too. But yeah, it adds to the channel, and if I can go on more adventures doing amateur radio with overlanding, I think that's where I'd like to steer the channel more, and do more of a documentary on where I'm going and the the people around me. I don't know how it's going to evolve, but yeah, it's pretty fun. It's exciting, and hopefully I can incorporate that into my storyline. But sometimes I just get there and activate. I mean, I can't talk myself up too much. I just got done going to the More Expo in Springfield and spent the weekend down there, and I was coming back home from that, and I stopped at a park to do a activation and film, and I was tired, and I probably could have done it better, but well, we'll see. It was still an activation. I was able to promote an organization that sends disabled veterans to do overlanding excursions. So, even though that it wasn't one of my signature videos, it still served a purpose in trying to get the word out for the Oscar Mike Foundation. So yeah, they all have purposes. So I try to maintain that in my videos, and I hope it translates.
Yeah, and I remember, your story about the museum. I just clued out. I went to a convent not too far from here, but maybe 20-minute drive. There's a historical site in Bucktouche, New Brunswick. It's an old convent. And if you look at the outside, the building is, it looks dated, it's worn. And when I was packing up, the curator of the museum, he just pulled in and he asked me what I was doing. He says, "Hey, I don't have a problem with you. And by the way, I'm the curator of the other church, which is also a historic site on the other side of the river. If you ever want to go there, just let me know. I'll give you a tour." Anyway, he took me inside the convent, right? And this place was beautiful, like the artwork and the woodwork. And I recorded all the inside. And it was a girls' school in the 1800s that were taking girls and making them into nuns. Basically, that was the purpose of the building. And it was a beautiful building. And I go so fortunate that I got to tell that story. Yeah, I just and your other comment about not showing off new product. That's one of my pet peeves of YouTube and ham radio and POTA. There's this number of YouTube channels now. All they're doing is pimping the latest stuff, right? Hey, Spool Tenna or Pack Tenna just sent me this new antenna. Look how great it is. I don't know how to use it, but look how great it is, right? I'm like you. If I show something, I bought it with my own money. I've tested it. I've proven it. I got a Radio Oddity HF10 antenna sitting on the bench here. I got it a month ago. I haven't even taken it out of the box. I got a buddy hex that I want to, all these things I bought with my own money that I haven't even used yet. But I don't take any. And I've turned down all kinds of sponsorship opportunities because in fact I want to keep my channel authentic, and doing stuff like this with you proves. Anyway, we're running long. Anyway, people are going to click off and go do something else. Brian, thanks for doing this, my friend. I really, really appreciate what you do for ham radio, your journey, and and thank you for your service as a firefighter all those years. I do have one last question. It's been bugging me ever since you told me you're in Kansas City. Are you a Chiefs fan?
Through and through, red-blooded.
I thought he was going to like you for a little. I liked you for a while until now.
But you're just going to have to accept that,
I'm a Bills fan. I've been a diehard Bills fan ever since I was like 3 years old. So I know the Josh Allen Patrick Mahomes rivalry. I don't know if it's going to live on. I have no idea what Patrick Mahomes' future is like in Kansas City. But he didn't have a good year this year. Neither did Josh Allen. So I think we just fired our coach. And I don't know if we hired a new coach yet or not. But anyway, well, I'll look forward to the smack talking next football season.
All right, that sounds good. And hey, just real quick with the other YouTube folks that that's their format is being able to advertise products and get people to understand what's being sold out there in the market. That's okay. That's what they do. It's just like in ham radio. You got the FT8 crews. You got the people who hate FT8. You got people who snicker at digital modes. Like DMR or Fusion or whatever. It's okay as long as they're doing what they're doing and people are being receptive to that. And those guys are successful, and most of those guys are successful YouTube guys. That's okay. We need those folks, just like we need folks that do interviews like you do, or folks that go out and try to make a storyline out of a park tech on the air activation. So yeah, we need all sorts of people, and I appreciate them all. I appreciate you, and thanks for having me out here.
Yeah, you're 100% right. 100% right. Brian, thanks again for doing this. I'm Stuart, Victor Echo 9, Charlie Foxtrot. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next video. We have another CW guy coming up real soon. My good friend Vince from Calgary, Victor Echo 6 Lima Kilo. Got an interesting story with Vince. And we're waiting for Mike from Alaska to come and join us, commit to a time to get that. And we're going to be talking QRP very, very soon with a longtime QRP operator. Again, I'm Stuart, Victor Echo 9, Charlie Foxtrot. We'll see you guys in the next interview. 7-3 for now, everyone.